out. So when I met Bill, he was the commander. Colonel Badger was a commander of a helicopter training unit down at Tucson, a big one for the whole western half of the United States. And when I went in his office, I saw pictures of pheasants all over, and mounted pheasants, and I couldn't believe it. Beautiful office, but all this beautiful photography. And I said, Bill, you've got to be from South Dakota. Sure, Redfield. Well, it happened that my sister-in-law is from Redfield. Well, they were high school classmates, so it's a very small world. So with that, I'd like to introduce Bill Badger. Bill?
Thank you, Darrell. And I'd like to just say, I spent 20 years in the South Dakota National Guard and retired and then went on active duty. But it was the training that I received in the National Guard that made me react on January 8th when Gabby was shot and I was shot in the back of the head. And I was just so lucky because the shooter was 5 feet from me when he pointed the gun at my head, and I dropped to the ground. And when I dropped to the ground, I felt the bullet hit the back of my head. When the shooting stopped, I stood up, and this is where my guard training came into being. There was a shooter right in front of me. Somebody hit him with one of the folding chairs people were sitting in, and he ducked. And when he ducked, his wrist came right out in front of me. I grabbed his wrist, I hit him just as hard as I could on the back, and down he went right on the sidewalk, and other people jumped on him. But it was my guard training that made me do that. But I want to say, being from South Dakota, I had guns. And I'd like to talk to the group over there that said New York laws for North Dakota, get back on the bus. The signs that are over there. Because 10 years ago, I would have been with the group that was right over there, standing there right now. But after I was shot in the head, then we tried to determine what are we going to do to prevent this from happening again. And Mark Kelly and the other victims got together, and we determined that we had to see if we couldn't get a law. Now, it's not a new law that we're trying to get entered into Congress right now. It's the Brady Act. The Brady Act that was put in after he was shot. And that expired in 2004. But the Brady Act set up the background checks and the database where names would go in if you were a convicted felon or if you had a mental problem, your name would go on a database, and then it would be checked before you could buy a gun. I can tell you there were a lot of problems with that bill, and we're trying to get those loopholes and problems corrected now in the new one. One of the problems with the other bill, and I've met a lot